Fear not, denizens. Parade is here, aka the bringer of rain, aka father of the sea and sun, aka king of the core. And today we are finally at the season finale of the Acolyte, episode 8, and I am here with none other than Uncle Sheev on twitch.tv, the Fan Awakens on YouTube and Instagram, the Kingmaker, the magnanimous Dragon Rider himself, Eli. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Here's your crown, sir. Thank you. That was an excellent intro. I am super excited. Super excited. I want to stress that again. Super excited for this review. And without going too far, I will say this episode solidified this show as a top 10 Star Wars show for me. Where it is on that list, I'll leave that up to you to decide.
Who knows? Is there even top 10 TV? Is there
I don't
even
know.
10 TV shows? Probably not. But we're finally at the end. Before we talk about our thoughts and walk through scene by scene, I want to just thank everyone who's been on this journey with us, going through the episode by episode review of the Acolyte and supporting the other videos on this channel, Rancor, and Instagram, and Eli's Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to see more, please like, comment, share. It really helps out the channel. And think about buying a Rancor shirt on rancorclothing.com. I'm rocking today the Senate. Shout out to Palpatine himself. And a little Easter egg to the prequels here, which I can't wait to talk about. But Eli, I want your surface level thoughts about this show, just the finale, just this final episode. Search your feelings.
My feelings are pretty clear, honestly. Mm-hmm. Good fight, bad episode. That's how I feel.
Good fight, bad.
Half of a good fight. Sorry.
Half of a good. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm definitely on good fight, and I won't say bad episode. I think I enjoyed this episode more than other episodes. So if you asked me, say, "Hey, Parade, did you like this episode?" I would go, "Yes," but it still ranks as not above a 5 out of 10, if that makes sense.
See, that brings an interesting question. What is the lowest rating? Not to like an episode. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, is five like that cusp, or
yes?
Okay.
Because if you like if you kind of put words to a rating, I think like 10 is probably perfection, amazing.
Sure.
And then 5 is average. Like it's like
I agree.
This is average, And then if you go below 5, 4, 3, 4, it's like bad, right? Or like
yeah.
But I think to close out the season, this was the best we could have gotten, in my opinion. I'm saying the best that they could have given us for what this was. Yeah. It was. There's potential for a lot more, of course, but yeah.
This episode for me was a wet blanket of an episode. I thought that the choices with the characters were just all over the place. Further, didn't make sense for me personally. With we'll get into it.
We're gonna get into it. Yeah.
And where they landed.
Yeah, and that's why and again, me and Eli don't text after, because I don't know. I almost spoiled it for you because I was like, did you watch it? And I almost be like, he's here. But I was like, wait, let me just wait. And you're like, hey, I haven't watched it yet. And I'm like, okay, we'll just wait for the review. But we usually don't talk about it. This is the first time we're hearing each other mini reviews on it. But yeah, I'm curious to how you felt during each of the scenes, because going through my notes that I took for the episode, I'm like, didn't like that. That's okay. Oh, I really like that. That's not, And I honestly think if they didn't end it the way they did, this would have been I would have rated it higher. But the way they ended it, I was just not a fan of. And again, I think the expectation is already low. So they hit the low expectation in my book. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, it is what it is. I didn't hate the episode. So, but it sounds like you do.
Yeah. I was not a fan of almost any choice in this episode, but a good fight scene.
Yeah, I think it was a great fight scene. But and for anyone who's just coming here and hearing us talk about it, we did a episode by episode review of the show, and to be fair, we do say the things that we like, and there are good stuff in the show. It's just not. It doesn't, like, there's too much bad in the show, too much silliness, too many weird choices to make it a good show. But where I want to say that we give it due where, it's given.
100%. I think, and I know I said good fight, bad episode. I know I said I didn't really like any choice made in the episode, but there's still certain things that you find between the lines that are positive, right?
Yeah.
And we'll definitely get to that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about them. And then what else was I going to say? But, if you guys enjoyed, again, if you're here and you're just kind of finding our reviews, if you really like this show, I'm super happy for you. And I think there's more people who like this show than, well, I wouldn't say more, but there's a good amount of people who like this show.
Yeah.
Then
I would say it's not like a minority.
Correct. So if you enjoy the show, we're super happy that you enjoyed it, and I'm super happy that you're here to talk about it with us. And then please in the comments let us know where maybe we interpreted something differently than you did, because we really like people commenting and engaging with the content. I think it's fun. This is just a discussion.
To double down on that, I think I love that people love the show. And if you did love the show, why did you love it? Let us know in the comments there. My favorite Star Wars movie is The Force Awakens. That's not most people's, I would say, but right. I love it to death. So, these all, we all got our different tastes. And,
it's subjective.
We cling to.
Yeah, it's subjective, and it hits everyone in a different way depending on where they're at in their lives. I know a big fan of the show is my daughter. She was like, "Can we watch The Acolyte?" I really like May and Ocean. I'm like, "That's great. Like, I'm glad you like Star Wars." And she's only 4, so she doesn't know. She doesn't know like the nuances and the acting. She's just watching it because it's fun, and our family watches it together. So, but the episode starts. We're back on the unknown planet with May in the helmet, and I forgot we were there. And the stranger walks in. He's like, "Yeah, you put it on, huh?" Yeah. And then she starts breathing heavy. Go ahead.
I think he was about to start breathing heavy. I don't know where this came from. He found the Book of Soul. And he's just like standing there.
He's like, "Yeah, that's cool. You're wearing
my helmet."
And then she's like breathing hard, and then I can't remember if she like asked for help, but he tries to help her, and his eyes are turning black, and then it's cutting into the blue kind of dream state that we've seen Mother Anastasia put Tormund through. So in my mind, I went, "Oh shoot, the Coven's here, or someone's affecting their mind," unless we're supposed to think Osha tapped into the thread, like her version of the Force, and is affecting him. Is that what we're assuming?
What I picked up from that was pretty much that. She put on the helmet, and what they described to us from, I believe, last episode is that, it kind of
2 episodes
takes
ago.
everything.
2
episodes ago,
yeah.
sorry. It kind of not blocks everything else out, and you can really attune with the Force. And,
right.
So I think that, one, it runs in the family. We've seen that. We've heard it. They've told us multiple times, "Oh, my mother could do that."
Yeah.
But then Chimera could do it. So I don't know. Maybe it's... I think it was just the helmet letting her tap into that.
Yeah.
And not really knowing what she was doing, and he realized what was happening. And, he had to fight her off a little bit mentally and help take the helmet off. My question is, what if he didn't take the helmet off? What would happen?
Yeah, what would happen? I don't know.
Were they about to have like a little Force Ghost conversation, Force Dimension conversation?
That would have been kind of cool. I mean, initially I thought she was going to be able to see what happened on Brendok. Like, the Force is kind of telling her what we saw in episode 7 of what I was going to say actually happened, but we already knew that part. But she said, "I had a vision." She takes off the helmet. She goes, "I had a vision of May with her hand outstretched, holding a lightsaber, but it wasn't on, and she was killing Soul, but didn't use the lightsaber." So a lot of foreshadowing there. And Chimera and the stranger, he goes, "She can kill with no weapon." And so, knowing what we know now, it's Force choking. Do you think this is like the first person who could Force choke anybody?
There's no chance. There's no way.
Too.
I don't want to skip ahead too much, but since you mentioned it, like, realizing that what the whole goal was to Force choke someone, Interesting. Not interesting. Just
Not
odd.
interesting, but
Odd.
Because saying it now in the context of how we know that
Yeah.
Osha uses force choking, I'm like, was that supposed to be a big reveal? Is this like a power that no other, force user could have done? And that I was like, that's a weird choice. And if you're familiar with the Star Wars universe and you played Knights of the Old Republic, there are thousands, millions of Jedi, and I'm sure, and Darkside Sith, who probably know force choking. So to have it here as Chimera, like, oh, this is this mysterious art that, there's that I'm trying to get May to do. And, it was a really weird choice and presentation in the show, to put it that way. Cause it was a whole thing. Like that was her whole arc was based on not using a weapon. And now it's revealed as a force choke. It feels like a bad reveal, a bad push of a character.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Was the poison a weapon? Was that a weapon? It's just
the little
a guy
knives.
took a drink. A guy took a drink and he died. Does that not count? I don't know. There's a lot that I think didn't make a whole lot of sense, and they backtracked on their own sort of storytelling, if you will, to this point. But yeah, the force choke was a pretty weird way to culminate that story.
And then arc. Also, why? Why is that a qualification?
I have no idea. And why? I mean, Chimera never really said, like, oh yeah, I also want them dead because of this, or
right.
What's his motivation here? The rule of two thing is very odd to me now with what's going on there. Yeah. Plagueis is just gonna be creeping around, spying on some lovebirds.
Don't worry about that. We're gonna get to that.
We'll get there.
So it intercuts back to Sol and May in the ship, and I forgot that she's laying there. I thought Sol was gonna be like, and that's the story of my side of the story, like going out of transitioning out of 7, because he was like, I have a lot to explain to you, and if it's not episode 7 that they just showed the audience, then what did he actually say? I don't really care. She goes, where are you taking me? He goes, we're going back to Brendok. I believe he says where it all started. He goes, I'm going to tell Vernestra that we're going to go there. And he goes, and if I have both of you alive, it could be proven that you both are virgins, that there was a virgins. Didn't they have proof already by the blood samples that they took of both of the girls? I was like, that's all the proof that you need. And if that's not all the proof you need, go back for May's body and be like, here's May's body. Here's Osha. They're the same person. We could do a test again because it's a blood test of the M count or whatever. So
my whole thing, again, I mean, Sol said in this, I just don't understand why this is a story at all. Why couldn't he have just told them, hey, there is a virgins, these witches made 2 girls out of the Force. They're wielding the Force in ways it shouldn't be wielded. And things went down. We tried to save them, and the mother turned into this giant ghoul thing, and we had to act. We were trying to save the girls. There's a fire, a kid said. Just I feel like it's just not the way they portrayed it, but like if you're telling the story, you go to the council, instead of lying, you could literally tell them what happened. Like, hey, there was virgins. These witches created girls with the Force. We tried to save them. One died, and I just don't see, like, I don't see the these Jedi are
it's the writing. It's literally the writing. Because if it was like, oh, actually, Sol has this backstory where he's caught in other lies and he got his Padawan killed and he just can't stop lying, and no, they can't trust him already. So now at this moment he has to prove it, and that's how he gets a Padawan. Oh wait, that's not the right backstory.
You know what this feels like?
It's like, what are you talking about?
Episode to episode with character motivations and character choices and reveals. It feels like, I don't know if there's a name for the game, but when you get like a line of people and everybody whispers the same thing into someone's ear. Telephone. Yeah, telephone. And by the end, it's something completely different that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And along the way, it just flip-flopped and changed, and you don't know what's going on, and the person in the beginning isn't the person in the end, and that's what it felt like to me.
Or Kathleen Kennedy was like, hey guys, I forgot to tell you, we have a project we got to do. It's an 8-episode thing. And then Leslie Headland's like, all right, you guys do one part, we'll do another part, and then we'll all come together, and then we'll figure it out. We'll put it all together. At the end, it'll be fun. Like it was like a rush job, but
yeah,
it just doesn't make any sense. May said, "Why did you lie to her, Osha? Why'd you lie to Osha?"
Yeah.
And then Soul, just like a broken record, I was trying to protect you. She's like, he goes, the fire, you started, killed everyone. And she's like, because the Jedi broke in. And I'm like, you can't justify bad behavior with more bad behavior. And I'm like, they're just kind of tied up from the dialogue. They're kind of put in a corner the way they wrote it to justify all the things that they've been showing us. And it just feels so inconsequential. So it's kind of, boring. It's uninteresting writing, and they showed us everything that happened in each scenario. So I don't know.
They did. And when Soul brings that up, you started the fire. Why did you jam the door and literally trap yourselves in there? I don't know. That's an odd choice. I don't remember if they actually knew the Jedi were showing up that night at that point. That's going to past episodes, but You're right. Bad decisions justifying bad decisions. Of course, we see the fire. She's a kid. You make mistakes. That's a pretty big mistake.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even that would be a better reasoning. She'd be like, I was a child. I didn't make great decisions. You're an adult. You were an adult at the time. I would have accepted that conversation. I would have accepted that argument as well. And it just sounds like it's just kind of the same. I mean, if we're going to talk about in-world stuff, it still sounds like the same logic that Chimera used, where Osha's like, you murdered people. And he's like, I only murdered Jedi. And she's like, well, what about Yorda Jeki? And he's like, they don't care about you. It's like just a bad way to justify killing people. And I was like, oh, it's the same writing logic. The logic is only so surface level. We're not going to get any deeper than this.
Even so, with how it went down that we saw, when Soul did kill Mother Anastasia, I feel like he's living with this guilt. Let it out. We saw what happened. It wasn't like you viciously murdered her because you wanted to kill her. You thought that she was gonna kill Osha or take her away or whatever.
Completely justified.
Tell her I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was trying to save you. I didn't know what was happening, and I acted, and I've had to live with that for the rest of my life. That's it's what happened. We saw it instead.
But it's funny because his guilt isn't killing the mother. His guilt is killing May, but she's alive. So why would you be feeling guilt still about a choice that she didn't even die from? Because you're like, oh, she's alive. Cool. Yeah, that's like you having guilt. Maybe if you you got in a car accident and you thought you killed somebody in the car accident, and then they're like, oh, they're alive, and you're like, oh, thank goodness. It sucks that I caused the car accident, but thank goodness no one died in this car accident. So there's there's levels of guilt here where I'm like, why are you still so broken up about it? It was a choice you made and she survived, and now you should make amends. And not once, I don't think Soul apologized, so maybe that's a part of it too.
That too. Also, it was never conveyed that Soul cared at all about May dying, really, until the end. Until he's like, my regret is not saving you both. Didn't seem like that for the whole show. He was like, she's gone.
And so at this part, and she's also undoing her braces, she's using Pip to undo it. I'm like, wouldn't you have taken that off of her before? But anyway, he goes into another monologue about you and Osha aren't twins. You're not sisters here. And then again, a mystery. Oh, he gets shocked and he can't finish what he was going to explain. The lights turn. It's like, okay. Why do we keep cutting off sentences like they're going to be big reveals? But May starts taking off and she stops. She goes, escape pod. She got to tell the audience where she's going. She jumps in. Yeah. Soul turns the corner and stops and goes, May! No. And the door's closed. She goes, see you in hell, Jedi.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Look, that's happened before. I think it was in Solo. I think Woody Harrelson's character says go to hell or see you in hell. Okay. I was like, all right. But and again, see you in hell, Jedi. I'm like, all right. Also, why didn't May never... it just took way too long for May. It's like, you killed my mom. You know what I mean?
She just says
that justifies a lot.
It does.
You think about Civil War, right? Captain America Civil War. They have that moment. He's my friend. I don't care. He killed my mom.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I understand.
But no, they want to keep it a secret. And then maybe at the end we'll feel for them, and I feel nothing. I was just like, we could have done something... You could have showed us that and maybe give us something else, but they didn't do that. And at this point, she ejects out of the escape pod, but it's apparently like the fastest ship in the galaxy. We're in an escape pod. I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, is this where the budget went? Because it's like,
it looked pretty cool.
And the music like swells and everything. But I was like, oh, this is probably the $100 million.
It's so funny because I had the same exact thought, but I'm like, okay, they went heavy with the end. You know, it's kind of like when you're eating cheese crackers and you save all the cheese for the last cracker. Like, oh yeah, we're loading this one up right here.
And I thought it was fine, but okay, now is Soul trying to shoot her down, or is he trying to tractor beam May?
I have no clue. I told my brother when we were watching, I'm like, what is he doing? What's the goal? I get chasing someone, but looks like he's trying to hit her out of the sky.
And if it's okay, so let's go through both. If he's trying to shoot her down, that doesn't help his cause with I need both of them alive to prove that they're virgins. And then if he's trying to tractor beam her, why does Basil get involved and start cutting wires if it's just a tractor beam?
You know what? I was about to say, also, yeah, Basil, what are you doing? I was about to say, he didn't need her alive, right? He could just said, oh, here's the body, and that's the virgins. But if that's the case, like you said earlier, why wouldn't he just go back to the Jedi and say, hey, this girl fell down a hole. If you just go back and we're doing land surveying and stuff, I'm sure they could do some excavating. Mm-hmm. Just find this girl from this crevice in the ground.
Yeah.
This will show you everything I've said. And weren't they out there wasn't their task to find a virgins? Meaning they already knew there was a virgins?
Yes.
And this is just like, oh, hey, guess what? There is.
There's one half. We brought one half back. You know? Like, if they just told the truth, it's so funny because it's just, there's no logic here. Real world logic where they're like, yeah, any of the stuff that you would have told the council, what was the worst that they could have, what would be your punishment? Like, what is the worst that you could be excommunicated? You know what I mean? Like, but you'd still be able to use like, I don't understand. Like, they're not.
It's so odd.
Yeah, there's no.
Even if it's like Indar was like, yeah, that is what happened, but Soul was being pretty weird. It's like, all right, sure. Well, you know what? Maybe they'll kick him out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But honestly, yeah, what was the worst that would have happened? They all went into.
But I don't even hear a punishable offense. Because if he goes, I killed Mother Anastasia because I thought she was about to kill her daughters. Fair. And then I had to choose between two girls. I'd had to between one part Osha and one part May, where they were both about to fall. And I had to make a decision, and I just chose Osha. There's no offense there.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying what they did was right? But, like, when you think about it from a reporting standpoint, reporting back, you're right. It doesn't, like, you could easily, instead they made this elaborate lie.
For no reason.
For no reason at all.
For a show. To make a show, basically. And so, Vernestra and Mog, she's like, Ryan Court is here to see you, the senator. And I shook my head because, he goes, I heard you traveled through hyperspace. And she's like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, oh, you brought it back up again. And last episode, I looked up and it's just vision. So I don't know why they're making it this weird thing. Like, why even bring it up? But shout out to David Harwood. He played Martian Manhunter in the CW shows. But I thought he brought... let me say what he said. He talked about the Jedi. He goes, it's a massive system of unchecked power, posing as religion, a delusional cult that tries to control the uncontrollable. And he goes, hiding behind like goodness and restraint or something like that. And I thought he brought a lot of presence to the screen. I wish they showed him earlier. I wish this conversation happened earlier in the episode to show that there's a premise that they're going to present here of bad Jedi. I wish it didn't happen this late. That would be that could have helped, but yeah, go ahead.
I actually agree. I think this guy could have been an Andor. Like, he was pretty awesome for that short bit he was in there, and it kind of gave me those vibes. Mm-hmm. I thought he did great. I do agree that a scene like this probably he as a character should have shown up before at some point to make this moment more meaningful, right?
Yeah.
My question also, though, is they seem very tight-knit in this lower council.
Yeah.
Who's the mole? They can keep this from the High Council within their own walls, but they can't keep it from a senator. Who's the informant?
Probably Mog or Basil.
It's just it's so weird. Like you can't. Yoda doesn't know, but the senator
The senator does, yeah.
He's got some good intel. I
He
give him that.
does.
He's got
He
some
does.
good. He's a good. He brought up valid points because this place is in total disarray right now. They can't help themselves telling a lie. And you see it from the first episode to this last episode. They are habitual liars, and it's gross. There's no reason to tell these lies.
Yeah. It's and what was the other thing I was gonna say about it? I wish they opened it up with this premise. Oh, and having him be a foil to the Jedi, right? And that's why they're like hiding stuff around him, because he's trying to dismantle. Let's say he's trying to dismantle the Jedi as a power there. Then I could relate to what Vernestra's trying to do about like, let's not tell people, right? Like, now you show him. I'm like, well, we're episode 8. Like, why are we showing him now? So, a little too late. But we get the stranger and Osha again, and they're walking toward the ship. And they're having this dumb conversation about where are we going? Well, I'm not going to tell you because if I tell you, whatever. And he goes, you should. And it's funny because like his dialogue, he doesn't like finish sentences. He has a weird sentence structure when he's written because it sounds like the way I talk and I can't get through a complete thought. But he's like, you should be trained. Would you ever consider? And she's like, I'm not my sister. Right. And then, he goes, May made that deal without even thinking about it. And I'm like, that's not a revelation because she has like, he's offering to train her into whatever art, right? Let's say we'll call it dark side art. Because now I don't even know if he's Sith really. May has nothing. May doesn't have a family. She has nowhere to go. She only has vengeance and rage on her side. So of course she would say yes. But Osha has a little bit more, she has like a backstory where she was like a former Jedi and now she's a mechanic, to whatever extent, she feels like she's a good person. We're introduced to her as a good person. Of course, May's going to say yes to this. And Osha's like, no, I'm different. And I was like, well, yeah, like, of course.
Apparently not.
But apparently not. Well, they're not even, they're the same person. But go ahead. Do you have something to say about this scene?
I was going to say, like, that conversation between Chimere and Osha felt like when I worked in retail, and there'd be like someone trying to sell me on joining their pyramid scheme. Like it's just, it's just ridiculous. I mean, he still killed your friends. He still killed all these people, and they just like their relationship came out of nowhere. I personally am not an advocate of the whole Reylo thing because I think it's incredibly toxic. 3 movies of them trying to kill each other. I mean, she tries to save him, whatever. But he's constantly trying to kill her, and then it's like, actually, you kind of like each other.
She put on his helmet, bro. She put on his helmet.
Especially when you have friends. There's Finn there. I always thought that made more sense. Finn. I felt like that was set up, and this just feels again like they went back to that treasure trope of not making anything make sense. Relationship wise, because where did this come from? You went from you're a bad guy, you killed Jedi, you killed my friends to let's
travel together. Let's go rescue. Let's go. He goes, it's a race then. We're racing to Brendok. But Eli, we called it a dark side, the Sith. We get a hand come out of the cave. It was like kind of a cool shot. I'm like, oh, this is a shot, and you see fingers wrap around the walls, and lo and behold, it's Darth Plagueis the Wise. Well, maybe before he's actually the wise part, but it's definitely Darth Plagueis. And I was happy to see he was a Mun, but I genuinely laughed when I was like, oh, they put him in like we thought they would have. But it only brings up more questions. What does Darth Plagueis' reveal mean to you? What do you think it means to the show?
To me?
Yeah. What do you think when he was revealed?
I think it's been a long time coming for Darth Plagueis to be in anything physically, right?
Yeah.
People have been wanting this for a long time. Myself included. It's a cool idea. I thought just story aside, the visual was kind of goofy, but it was cool to see him. He looked detailed, right? It looked like whoever did the work did a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It didn't look like it even fit in this show. It was done so well to me.
Oh, okay.
Like I was like, oh, this is a very cool shot. But this felt like one of the most shoehorned things I've ever seen in my life. That's this whole episode. It's like, okay, there's been zero setup whatsoever of this moment happening. There's been zero mention. There's been zero tease. And it just felt like, hey, they said we can use Darth Plagueis. Let's just throw him in there. Why not? And we've mentioned the power of two. I want the power of two. So he's creeping around these caves, and he's just like, is he just, hey, Chimera, I know you're getting into this little thing with this girl, and that's okay. I'm just gonna watch it happen. We're just gonna. He's like, they're all taken from the Book of Soul, I guess, because he's even creepier than him. He's just creeping around the corner. Very weird. Very weird. I don't know why he was in there. Like, if you're teasing a season 2, sure.
Yeah.
This feels like it would have been better as the last thing you see before the credits roll.
Right.
This specifically, the placement and not having it queued up at all felt like it felt like an afterthought. It felt like an afterthought, and I don't love that. It was cool to see.
Yeah.
I don't trust this show to do justice to a character that, to be honest, I don't care if they change his background. I don't care if they change his lore. He could have been not a Mun. I wouldn't honestly care. But I just don't trust that they'll make a good character because they haven't really done so far. So I'm not super excited at the prospect of like Darth Plagueis' story being told in this. But it was a cool little visual, I guess.
So what I was gonna say about Plagueis, I agree with you. I think this is a setup for season 2. Yep. But I want to disagree just a little bit because I think the Coven creating life through the Force is definitely a nod to Plagueis, but now where we're at in the way the timelines are, I think they're gonna say that the Coven Coral taught Plagueis how to do, like, create life. Or Mother Anastasia taught Plagueis. I thought, because initially I thought Plagueis taught them, but this might be where Plagueis still might be under Tenebris, his master, and I don't think they have anything to do with Chimera. And so now I'm reconsidering that Chimera is actually a Sith when he's not. Like, because if Plagueis sees if he sees two people trying to be Sith, I'm killing both of them, right? The way the Sith work is like you don't usually get an apprentice out in the open. It's usually a secret apprentice, and then you both try to kill your master. So I think Chimera actually doesn't know Plagueis is right there. Like, I think he's like Soul watching them, and I thought this is where my mind went. My mind went, oh, Soul's the Sith, because he's acting so erratic and so emotional that he is actually Plagueis's apprentice. And I thought that's what was going to be revealed, and that doesn't happen. But just because they were like creeping in the same way is what like went to my mind. If
Chimera doesn't know he's there, what the heck? I don't know how that's justified whatsoever.
Because if Chimera was trying to get an apprentice, unless Plagueis was like, go get an apprentice and then you both try to kill me, like that. I mean, maybe, but I don't think.
Maybe he's trying to become Plagueis' apprentice, and maybe having May or Osha here, I don't know this, but maybe it's like Plagueis wants them here to learn how to make life. I don't know. Like, it's like he's using them, you know what I mean? So
I think he might be trying to use May and Osha to figure out his portion of, because I think at this point, I think Plagueis doesn't know how to create life. I think he's trying to learn. That would be my guess.
Yeah, I agree.
And so now he knows that they're a virgins as possible here, and maybe he followed them here, or knows that, or you know, something in the Force told him that they were there. I don't think Chimera is actually involved with them. So I don't think we'll ever get a season 2, and we'll talk about that later. But I think the plan was for Chimera and Osha to maybe uprise and go against Plagueis. I think Plagueis would kill Chimera and then try to get Osha and May. But I don't know. It's just such a weird thing.
He essentially called himself a Sith. I know he didn't say I am a Sith, but he said, you know, your people might call me a Sith. It feels like he's a Sith.
And in interviews, they said he's Sith.
Yeah, so I feel like that's confirming he's a Sith.
But like, they might not be together, because back in other times Sith were not together, and then eventually the rule of two came into place. But it doesn't mean that other Sith can't pop up.
He does mention the power of two. I want the power of two.
But as an old Jedi student, he knows this. He should know the Jedi history, even though the new his class learned the Sith teachings, but the new Jedi class in the High Republic don't know anything about this. I don't know. It's a weird thing.
I really, you might be right. Who knows? I don't know what to expect from the storytelling at all. Right. Maybe he is creeping on him, and that's a parallel to Soul creeping on him in a way. But oh man, Chimera has to have a master himself. I don't think he's the master here.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
And that's so, like, unless it's one of Mother Coral, which I don't think that's the case at this point. It feels like that's like the reveal, I guess. But they didn't give us anything. I still feel like there's literally no reason to put him in there at that point, other than like this show had so many moments that were like, okay, I feel like they had their whiteboard, their chalkboard, whatever, and like, what are things that people want to see that they haven't seen? Darth Plagueis, check, throw him in there.
Yeah.
There's other things later in the show, check, throw him in there.
Yeah.
And this, I think this will be an interesting debate. Do I think it's cool he showed up? Yes. I
laughed. I genuinely laughed because I was just like, hey, we called it, right? Like, hey, I'm Darth Plagueis the Wise. It was bound to happen.
It feels like one of those things though where people have been waiting for it so long. Why would you put it in there as such a pointless thing?
I mean, also the show is Acolyte, and it's supposedly about Sith and evil, and so you show one of the guys during the time who is the embodiment of that stuff. But
think about almost like Kylo and Snoke, right? For one scene in Episode 7 where Kylo goes to report to him, or Vader talking to the Emperor for the first time. It's sort of oh, this is the master,
right?
And it could have, I don't know, they could have done something like that if he is his master.
Yeah.
But maybe not. Maybe not.
Would you have liked this scene at the end where they're where they're holding hands and then you see him? Would that mean?
Honestly, it would have made more sense.
Yeah, it would have made more sense.
But
they're like, that's too cheesy. Let's not do that. Because it reminded me of the Darth Maul scene in I know, right? It reminded me of the Darth Maul scene in Solo, where he's like, talking to Kira, and you're like, oh wow, yeah.
Too cheesy. I don't think that's in their vocabulary.
It has a name tag, and like in the glint says the Wise. You're like, oh, I wonder who that is. So after we see Plagueis and everyone, their brain melts, we go back to Brendok. Soul, they show the Soul ship. He turns on his transponder now, Babel, for Vernestra to find him, and he goes like this. He uses the Force to try to locate May. They show Basil sniffing around. We're like, this guy is still here, and then they cut to Vernestra at a table. This is the part that really threw me off. She goes, I need to get a message to him. And in the best Palpatine impression that I've ever heard, he goes, this is highly unorthodox, but I'll see what I can do. And then I went, she's reaching out to Palpatine so she can talk to Plagueis. Like, that's because we just saw Plagueis, right? And then now she wants to talk to some master on the phone. And so that's what my brain went to. But that's not what the case was. And we'll talk about that here at the end. But yeah, and Mog goes, hey, Soul turned on his transpond. He's transponding from Brendok, and she's like, okay, let's go.
Bring as many Jedi as you can without making a scene, or whatever the exact verbiage was.
We're gonna keep this secret still. No one's gonna know. And then Chimera and May are in the ship, and I feel like, this scene, they're like flying through space. And the ship looks cool, right? I don't think we've seen a ship up close. And I was like, oh, it's kind of a cool design. Almost looks like a tie with extra connections or whatever. And they're like, oh, the scans show that they're already there. And, as they're flying in, Soul sees them and, he's walking through. But I feel like the intention here was to be like, hey, we can only fit 2 people on this plane. We can't fit 3. Like if it was Chimera, Ocean, May, we only take 2 people. It's a rule of 2. It's a master and acolyte. No more people. Anything about these scenes anything you want to say about that?
With the rule of two thing though, I feel like it's like it doesn't really matter.
No.
We had Grievous and Dooku with Ventress and all the Inquisitors, and there's always there's always a ton of Inquisitors. There's always wiggle room around it, and that's fine with me. I don't like it, doesn't bother me. But it does feel like sort of, I don't know, the rule of two thing may got abridged over time. But you're right. I do think they did that to show like there's only room for two of us.
Only room for two.
Obviously, they Return of the Jedi'd us with the outfit choices. With May wearing black and May wearing white and Osha wearing black. Yeah, I was like, we got that Return of the Jedi move. Okay. I see. I
did want to mention that I think one of the parts when they're walking back to the ship, I thought their costumes were really cool. I like the hooded cloak thing that Osha was wearing, and I like it almost looked like maybe a light leather or neoprene poncho that Chimera was wearing. I was like, I like these costumes a lot. I just wanted to make sure I said that. Soul walks down memory lane, the greatest hits.
The good old days.
The good old days. 16 years ago, we seen it twice. He passes the big hole that we never explore. He passes the courtyard. He's like, that's where Torben and Cal Naka threw down. I remember that. Good old times. And he looks and he can hear the echoes of May going, Mama, no! And he killed her mom. And we get back to... They cut again to probably the most prominent scene in the show, the front of the elevator. And in front of the elevator, they're like, the controls are not working. She goes, do you want to climb? And Chimera disappears, and he's like, he says something like that, like that's one way or something like that. And he disappears, he teleports, he mists, who knows? But the elevator is a hot spot because, again, we eventually see Vernestra and the Jedi again at this elevator.
Everybody goes to that darn elevator,
It's one way in, one way out, man. No way out. Soul is walking through, and he passes the bridge where he sees the terrible decision he made, and he can hear echoes of just no, of a place where he thought May died, but actually didn't. And shout out to you, talking about holes that people fall through, ventilation shafts that people fall through and survive.
Yeah, it's another trope, man.
And she's like, it sucked me through this tunnel. And I'm like, okay. There's a little exhaust tunnel here. That's cool, I guess. And out of this hole that Soul turns around from, a hand comes. And whose hand? Oh, it's May. And she's climbing up through the hole this time. And Soul's traveling through, screaming May's name. May finds Osha's room where she tried to burn her sister alive. And then Osha slices the elevator. It works. She's a mechanic still. And while Soul is going through the halls, a voice appears and we get close quarter combat. Soul and the stranger duking it out again. Again, I actually really like the fight scenes in the show. I know people probably think like the Crouching Tiger slow motion wire work stuff is cringy, but I liked it. I thought it was fine. I was like, oh snap, like there's slow mo and they're going down to the open area and triple kicks and slow motion scenes. I thought it was cool. There was a nod where I feel like Soul said, I will destroy you if I must, very reminiscent of Obi-Wan. I'll do what I must, and turns on the lightsaber. But within this fight, Soul pulls out the little saber from inside of his saber and dual wields and eventually throws both sabers and then tries to Superman punch Soul, but Soul's an airbender. He says, not today. He's like,
hey, it was a cool scene, right?
Yeah.
I thought the fight scene was pretty awesome. Some nice camera work, You can tell, I'm sure it's the same choreography team still, right?
Probably, yeah.
I mean, they did pretty great. Mm-hmm. The Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon thing, it's fine. I just feel like they keep referencing it over and over, but it's not really the style of the entire fight. So whatever it does, it's always like, oh, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon moment,
right?
But it's fine. I think it's a nod, not a big deal for me.
And maybe
the fight is pretty fun.
And maybe people who aren't even like a younger audience who is not familiar with The Matrix or not familiar with Crouching Tiger, because those movies they're fairly old. This might be the first time you've seen it, and I think it looks cool. I think it looks good. Again, shout out to that team who does all the choreography. But they cut to Osha finding May in her room, and they have the conversation about, like, she goes, I didn't do this. And I was like, yes, you did. You definitely burned this place down. And, May says, Soul lied to you. He blamed me. And she goes, Soul never blamed me. And she talks about how she couldn't calm her hatred. There was too much grief over mother. That's why she couldn't be a Jedi. And, are you happy now? Are you happy that I couldn't? It was like, you achieved your goal. And then Osha reveals that Soul killed her mother. I saw it. Now, you've seen your sister like 4 or 5 times before this. Could have said it then. So
I agree.
I don't understand. And in a fit of rage, Osha attacks May. And then now she can fight all of a sudden. And I thought that was a little weird.
My thing I pulled from that is I think that it's just her getting back in tune with the Force. And it's sort of like, when you're connected to it, they say, you can see things before it happens, and it just kind of aids that whole thing. They don't necessarily explain it, but that's just kind of how I took it. And like, all right, she's back in tune with the Force, and she's ready to go. Whatever. They tried really hard to make sure to show them, using the exact same parallel moves.
Right.
My question is, if you put such an emphasis on them not being twins, but being the exact same person, I just feel like they should have shown us something that lended to that, right? Because to me, they're twins. I don't know, like, what makes them the same person. The same person plays them both. I get it.
Yeah.
But like, what makes this special? Right. They're just twins who seemingly care about each other, but definitely don't care about each other, and make weird choices. You're right, though. They've seen each other too many times. Why didn't you say how are you friends, or how are you with the guy that killed her mom? Yeah, I don't know. And fight scene was cool.
And I wish they posed that earlier, because then we could have saw conflict with Osha when she's with Soul and questioning him about it, right?
Yeah.
And him trying to like kind of get around it or whatever. I mean, there's so many ways you could fix that. I was assuming that now, since they're one, now we know that they're one. Now she has gained the. Now she knows Kung Fu, right? She learned it through osmosis of being the same person. And maybe even where I would go as far as say Osha gets like, now you see the tattoo on Osha's head, right? Now you can't tell them apart. Or even something that you brought, a nod to fusing together, right? Like something like that. And I still think that's possible if we ever see more of this. But I was like, wait a minute. How does she know how to fight? Because one, she has never showed any fighting ability. She said she failed 8 years ago, and all of a sudden now she can throw hands like May can.
I want to point out that I keep mentioning good fights. Like last time I was criticizing him, like, a good fight, like trying to like justify my my criticism. I'm like, it didn't make sense. I didn't like it, but good fight.
Good fight though. GG. No, well, and that's what's cool is like it's cool that the fight scenes are good, but if you don't have the story to back it up, it just falls flat. And I felt like the second meeting of Soul and Chimere makes more sense story-wise because Chimere killed everybody. Like, and I wish there was some reference to it again where, Yord and Jecki came up again. I wish there was something where Soul can pull from, but apparently he doesn't care about them. So
I don't know who he does care about. He doesn't seem to really.
I'll tell you who he cares about. We're getting to that part. But Vernestra's ship in the distance, they see it in the background. And I think some people thought it was going to be Plagueis because it's like a weird ship.
It was a weird ship. I was like, is that a Jedi ship? I questioned it too.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool if Plagueis showed up.
I mean, and Chimere says, oh, they're not here for me.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so who is this? And like, oh, no, it's
for Soul. He's like assuming Soul's going to be the one. Why would Chimere know that?
I don't know. I was so confused by that line, especially when you see how it plays out. I'm like, I mean, technically, I guess now they're here for Soul because he's the only one there, but did he think someone else was coming? And he's like, oh, no, that's not who I thought.
No, well, that would have been funny if there's a subplot, like, because when you go through these like movies and then they're like, on our way over to Brendok, we reported what you did to the council, and they knew who to arrest when the guy, like something like that, right? Like a little flashback to them calling, but that's not what happened. So they cut to Osha and May, and they both look up again, the ship flying over, and I'm like, oh, Vernestra's here. and May does a disappearing act, which I'm like, I don't get this trope. Like, is it supposed to be fun? Or I was like, I don't know. It's weird. I guess they don't want to show him running away. I don't know. So we get Soul and Chimera, and they're fighting, and then this is where their sabers lock. Soul over Chimera's, right? And then Chimera attempts to stab for his head, and then now it's switched. Now the red saber is on Soul's side, and and it looks like Chimera is now pulling the blue saber towards his helmet to assumedly defuse it, and the sparks are coming off and it's bouncing off it. That was like, that looks cool, like on the Cortosis helmet. And you see Chimera try to headbutt it, and Soul turns off his saber, and I stood up. I said, oh no, you are invoking Tricata. That is dishonorable. You were working with Plagueis, Soul. You were working with Plagueis. And then, you know, he does a strike, and I'm like, Chimera's dead. Chimera's dead. We killed him. We did it. High five, everybody. We did it, right? But that's not what happened. He was alive still. His saber got cut, but Chimera was alive. So it was like a little trick they played on me. But I don't know if you're familiar with the Tricata form.
Yeah.
If the audience who is listening, it's a style of lightsaber combat. It's dishonorable amongst the Jedi. It's not sportsmanlike, where you turn off your lightsaber and turn it back on to win in a saber fight. And the Sith don't like it either because they think it's cowardly.
It's how to fix a plot hole. It's how to justify, why don't they just turn off? Like, well, it's dishonorable.
Yeah.
And it makes it. I like it when you have lore reasons for that, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's a fine rule. Because like there'd be so many times where you could just do that and win, but they're like, hey, there's a reason why each of these don't. But it's interesting to me. I was like, oh, okay, Soul's still painted out as a bad person for doing it. That to me, that was like, I was like, they emphasize this too much. That's bad. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But Chimera's saber's cut. The emitters cut, and is showing the red kyber crystal there, foreshadowing what we're going to see here in a second. And he takes off his helmet, and he turns around, and the blade's right in his face. I'm like, oh, he's disarmed. You can't kill him now. Be careful.
Why not? Yeah, I know.
And we know that Soul is ready to take his head off the last time he did this, but Soul has this guy's number, man. Chimera's 0-2 against Soul.
Yep, Soul's got him.
Soul's got him. You know, there's no, you can't beat this guy in hand. There's no way.
I thought he was gonna get his lick back, you know, and that would have been like, oh, for Jackie, for yours,
tap in, man, tap in.
My people. He's too dangerous to be left alive, right?
Right. Yep.
No.
But May jumps in and disarms Soul. And I'm like, well, she wasn't able actually to beat Soul either, so I don't know why she's able to disarm him now, but maybe he was caught off guard. Maybe he's real tired from all not sleeping on all these plane rides. But we're like, the Vision! May is holding the lightsaber, but she's not using she's not using it to kill him. And Chimera goes, feel your anger. Strike him down. She throws the lightsaber. She goes, like my father before me. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. I won't do this. I won't do this. She says, no. I want him to confess to everyone. I want to confess to the Senate, the Republic, the galaxy. Confess all your crimes. And he was like, I was trying to protect you both. And she's like, from what? And he re-explains, you and Osha are the same person. The Virgins is explained again and not explained all at the same time.
Yeah. You're not telling us, like, the danger of it, right? You're just saying that it happened.
He's like, it's too powerful. Like, okay? Yeah, only a few people can do it. He's like, only a few people could do it. It's too powerful. And she's like, yeah, like my mother, who you killed. And he's like, she goes, just say it. Just say it, you killed her. And Osha's in the background. And she hears the confession. And he goes, yes, I did. And then Osha goes, is that true? I'm like, girl, he said it.
I really, really, really don't. This was a hard moment for me to watch.
Yeah.
Just because of it feels like a year goes by for these characters every time I see them, because it's like what happened between 5 minutes ago and now in every episode that they just like the downfall of Osha and May sort of seemingly. I know she's not a good guy per se, right? But she definitely gave she felt like Osha in this episode, and Osha felt like May in this episode. But it's not really explained, you know? I don't have a justified reason for that happening whatsoever. Why did May now wants justice, and then Osha, is
Vigilante
having
justice or vengeance now. Yeah. Yep. It doesn't make any sense because, yeah, exactly. If May said she wanted to turn herself in, then fought Jackie, and then try to kill Soul on the plane, and then now when she's justified, she wants him to confront the council. And I was just like, what? Again, flip-flopping. Even Basil cutting the wires. If he's trying to cut the tractor beam wires, that's a flip-flop, right? Because he already tried to attack May. Even Basil could not get away from the flip-flop nature of the show, and it drives me crazy. Go ahead.
I think these are clearly, the way I viewed the show, Chimera is clearly a Sith, or at least he wants to be, or trying to be. He identifies seemingly as a Sith.
He identifies
that's what it... I wasn't even trying to reference that episode at that moment, but that's what it feels like to me, okay? And it feels so weird to, even Chimera turns into this, romantic, I understand you. He's like, I just want, I'm just out here trying to be a Sith, What's so bad about it? I'm a good guy. I'm just trying to bring justice through. It's just, it's so weird that Sith are bad Jedi, or Sith are good, Jedi are bad. I think there's a way to try and give that perception, through trauma and through Soul making these bad decisions, and it's like, I am doing this because I need revenge against you. And it just didn't really land at all for me. And Chimera doesn't seem to have, I don't feel rage in him. I feel like he belongs on, he's on Sith Beach. It's like if there was a Sith reality TV show called, Sith Beach, it's like a Sith dating show, he would be number one. He would be number one on that show.
I present this kyber crystal to you. And then it's now there's two sisters and he has to choose between them.
It
feels weird.
The show would be called Rule of Two. It's will you be my number two? It's I'll be your number two. Will you be my number one? It's just
I get that.
And I like him. Manny Jacinto, I thought he did
a good job.
I think he did a pretty good job.
To be fair, I think everyone did a good job for what they were given to work with. The writing isn't helping anything, and I feel like there's a lot of things that are missing, and the characters that are portrayed in the show are only doing what they're doing because they know what the script says, and that's how the audience is being fed this information. It's you already know because we said it to another character, and when would have they have talked about it, or when we have put these two dots together. Go ahead.
I think the issue too is that you can have a bad script with a good story at its core. Mm-hmm. This has a bad script and a bad story.
Correct.
Which is a double trouble for you. Because what's going to save you? The direction I don't think has been particularly excellent either. So I'm not going to fault anyone who's been a part of the show as far as acting wise.
Right.
But bad script, bad story. And I don't mean to be mean here, but nonsensical story to me.
No, it's not.
And characters that make no sense.
Yeah.
I do struggle to find a silver lining, which is why I keep saying fight good.
Yeah.
But it's not just that it's bad per se, because there's bad movies, there's bad stuff where I'm okay, it's just bad characters, whatever, or it's a bad movie. This bothers me to a point a little bit because I don't even know what these characters are after the episodes.
Right.
I don't know who's who, and it just when we come to the end of this, and with what happens next with Osha, I don't know. It just feels like Sith they're not even Sith anymore. They're just I don't know. I don't know. Osha going with Chimera didn't feel earned.
Correct.
And she doesn't feel it feels like in the last 10 minutes they try and make this Sith duo seem like a thing, and it just doesn't feel like it.
There's too many leaps of logic And I think that's the frustrating part. And that was what I was feeling a few episodes back. Now I just kind of accepted to what it is. The inconsistency of the characters, the bad motivation of the characters, the flip-flopping of their motivations and what drives these characters. It's not consistent enough. And people who are more logical on that side, when you're watching these things, you're like, why are they doing that? And now you're pulling out of the immersion, and now you're too confused to know what's going on. There's people who enjoyed the show. I think what they're getting surface level stuff, and they're like, okay, cool. I don't really have to think too hard, and they're just kind of going with the beats. And to me, it feels like you're good with it because the show has showed you that you should be good with it from what they showed you. But if you think just one level deeper about what you know, what the characters know, it doesn't make any sense. Because the only people that I could pinpoint who had, and I said this in the past, who had good motivation, who were consistent characters, was Yord and Jackie, and they're dead. They're not in the show anymore. And there was never a time where May just could justify why she would want to be good, and there was never a time where Osha can justify being bad, besides here at the end where she finds out that her mother died. It just doesn't, like you said, it doesn't feel earned at all. And I think that's an issue with the writing of the show, how they decided to write it and present it. Here Osha says, is that true? Again, like a broken record. Soul says, I was trying to protect you. She goes, she said, the one thing that she says that makes sense to me is, why, if it wasn't that bad, why didn't you tell the Jedi?
Yep.
It's a good question. It was actually a legit good question. And he was like, there was no proof without May. And I'm like, well, her body was down there. You knew her body was. And he said they would have sent you away. So he's kind of just like rambling just to kind of justify his bad choices. I wanted to tell you so many times. It sounds like a guy who got caught cheating, right? It's like, he's like, the life, because I was trying to give you the life you always dreamed of. I did everything. And then this is the interesting part. I only heard it the second watch. He said, I did everything I did because I love, and then she starts force choking her. And I was like, that's interesting, where he was about to say, I loved you, or I love you. And that still makes him a creep. And it also makes him not so much of a Jedi who's full of attachment, which goes back to what the senator said. He's like, he goes, you can't control, uncontrollable. And she's like, we can't control the Force. We're not trying to control the Force. He's like, no, your emotions. So it's just it foreshadowed that, right? Where Soul can't get it together. And again, selfish. They talk about it later. Vanessa describes him as a selfish person. And that comes off across pretty clear that he's selfish and he's only dealing with his intentions.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that you're right. As far as like things, it makes sense for Osha to be very upset, mad, and ready to kill Soul when she finds out what happened from his own words. I do think you're right. This is the time that I get he feels this guilt, but like this is the time to say why you did it. I know we've seen it, but like I thought she was gonna kill you. I thought your mother was gonna take you away, or whatever the case. It's like I didn't mean to kill her. I
justified
didn't
in
go
a different
there.
way.
I didn't go there to kill your mom.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I was helping you. I thought I was saving you.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest regret of my life. And she could still kill him.
Yeah.
But like at least
I would have liked that.
This is where you let it all out.
Be accountable for your actions to wrap up your character's arc. Yeah. No, I wish. Yeah, that would have been better.
Because he wasn't.
No, he was still kind of like lying.
And he said he was going to bring himself before the council and this and that. And you're right. He sees Osha and he's just like, I didn't. I was trying to protect you. I know that there was that moment earlier with Osha and May when Osha says he never blamed you. He just taught me that he tried to, I forget the wording, but it's like tried to make sure I knew that even someone you love can do, a terrible thing. It's like, okay, he's talking about himself.
Yeah. And he mentioned that in was like episode 4 or whatever, when he was trying to get Osha to come with him to find May. Because I mentioned that part, I'm like, she's a murderer, but he's like, but she's still family. And I was like, nah, that's not how it works, but okay.
Yeah, it's not how it works.
I mean, like, that was consistent to whatever last, but I didn't mean to interrupt her. That was back.
No, you're good. I just think, from this point, we get a pretty big lore moment, right? It's a cool visual.
Right, yeah. So she says, stop talking, and she's force choking Soul. Whoa, what a reveal. Killing someone without using a lightsaber, And she's holding... Is she holding the saber in her hand?
I think did that happen before the show?
She's holding it while she's choking him, I think. Because then it
Gotcha.
starts. It's like you actually see like the middle of her hand kind of bleed, the dark side kind of bleed into the blue kyber crystal, and if you didn't see it, you'll see it in a second when Chimera tries to touch her shoulder, and she goes, she turns on the lights, and don't touch me, and you see it go from blue to red, which I don't think is a thing, but they made it a thing for people who didn't catch the bleeding of the kyber crystal the first time. But I do want to shout out to Lee Jung Jae for learning English for this role, for his acting ability, for his commitment. I think he did a great job. Character, don't like so much. I think he's supposed to be unlikable given what we've seen through this. But I think he did a good job, and like all the other actors did. I think they're at the tier of like not bad acting. It's just again bad.
Oh
acting.
no,
so
yeah.
Shout out to him. I want to make sure we give him his props. Squid Games.
And also, you know what I mean? I think, yeah, he did great for what he had. And I think Star Wars, you know, you can look back at, there's plenty of moments people love, and I don't want to start a fight here, but people love Anakin. let's keep it all the way a buck here. I don't think he was winning any acting awards, and that's fine. Like, that's fine. But I don't think that's necessary. Like, it's okay. But I do think he seems like a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He went through a lot for this role. I respect it a ton. Learning English is not easy.
No,
you know, obviously I grew up knowing English, but like trying to learn other languages, it's a tough thing to do, especially knowing that you're not only going to have to, it's not like he's going to order food, you know what I mean, at a restaurant. He's like communicating and acting and which is pretty great. So shout out to him for that.
Yeah.
And he went out pretty, you know, it wasn't very satisfying. Like you said, he had this arc about all this guilt, and it really didn't culminate into him having anything, you know, a big moment of finally airing that out, letting it go, or confessing to everything fully. You know, he admitted it, but it was still his thing of, I was trying to protect you.
And he still didn't even apologize for killing their mother.
You're right, he didn't. He just said, I did it. And he tried to justify himself by saying it was for you. Which, that like, didn't.
It could have been like, I'm sorry I took a person that you genuinely loved away from you. And May. Like, just do the apology here. Here. Like, it's just weird.
Obi-Wan apologized to Anakin, and he, you know, I am sorry, I have failed you, you know? Like,
what a great, that's a great moment from the prequels, right? You were my brother, I loved you, and just put it all out there because that person's about to die. But
yeah.
He got force choked, baby. He was about to apologize. I'm sorry. And then, you know, but he didn't. He didn't get there. I don't think he was. At this point, you see Vernestra get off the ship. As she touches the ground on Brendock, the force, she zooms in on Chimera, and she goes, you! And he goes, oh! And he puts the helmet on really quick. He puts his magneto on so she can't find him through the force. You know, she's like, you're alive. So now confirmed, Vernestra and Chimera know each other. Yeah. And, you know, Ocean and May, they go, we need to leave. And then the Jedi back at the elevator. Boop, boop, boop. Get back in. They use the Force to open the elevator.
1 sec. Before we move on from this, the bleeding of the Kyber Crystal thing, it was a cool visual.
It was cool, yeah.
Also felt a little like, all right, whatever. It's quick. Cool. It seemed like one of those things that they just included because it was cool. But it was a cool visual. I just don't think it was that big of like, oh, now Osha's a Sith, or, you know, she's tapped in the dark side. Yeah. That's fine. Not a big deal. But the thing that bothered me was this moment when, you know, Vernestra walks out and is like, oh, it's him. And you're like, okay. So he was a Jedi for sure. And, like, he was part of it. This just goes back to Episode 5. And I was reading through articles back when Episode 5 came out, after we did our review, and I thought it was like, no, you know, people were saying, oh, Yord saying, oh, it's you, and Chimera telling Soul, you remember me. I'm like, yes, from Episode 2.
Right, that's what we said.
But now it's like, no, it was like, oh, you from the Jedi Academy or whatever. I'm like, what? You saw him plain as day to his face, no mask, in Episode 2, and you didn't like. And then Yord is clashing with him.
I still don't think he was around then, because I think they've confirmed that Vernestra's a lot older, like they could live more time, maybe, and then but I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like it's there were large publications that I was reading, Nerdist and like
Sure.
I think Collider was one of them. That they're saying like, oh, this is alluding that he was a Jedi, and a
Before,
youngling, and
yeah.
Yord knows him from. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And now it feels like that's just another plot hole here. Like, and he's like, Soul. When he told Soul, you don't remember me? I'm like, well, I
Well,
mean,
he was also in a mask. I was
He
like, how would
was,
I
he was.
remember you? But it again. It's I don't know.
But it feels like it would have. It feels like when you go back to watch, say episode 2 never happened, just the part where they met Chimera, say that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
It would make a lot more sense when Soul is like, I sense something from, we'll both have to face our past. I sense something, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. But they just saw him, so I don't know. It all like that moment. I was like,
So they get on the elevator, and then conveniently, this is where May explains how she survived. She goes, "This is how I survived the fall." And they climb down. She goes, "I got sucked up into this vent," and they're like, "Oh, cool." It just reminded me of like a Millhouse in part, because this is where I come to cry. And he's like, "Cool," and like just like go through the tunnel. Vernestra uses her psychometry. We seen Ahsoka do it. We saw her do it in a previous episode, and she can hear all the screams and everything that went down here on Brendock. And she goes up to Vernestra goes up to Soul's body, and we see Chimera watching from the bridge. Like, she turns up and then he's gone. Like, whoa, crazy.
It's Batman.
It's Batman. They get to the Boonta tree, and it's cutting with the Jedi and Basil sniffing them out, and go into the Boonta tree. And May and Osha, and this is the part where I'm like, I don't really care about any of this stuff. Sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I started that fire. I am with you. You with me. And then she goes, "Who taught us that rhyme?" And I'm like, oh, it's another nod to the Plagueis or anybody else. And the stranger arrives. He force pulls the lightsaber, and he goes, "If I can find you, they can find you." Okay. And he goes, "Osha, when they find out how powerful you, they'll, you don't want to know how." He says something to the lines of, "They'll find out how powerful you are." Okay. And May turns to Osha, and she goes, "What do you want to do?" She goes, "Let my sister go. I'll train with you, and we'll be romantic interest or whatever." And they're crying, and she's like, "The Jedi will use me to find you." And he goes, "Memory wipe." And I'm like,
he hit her with the neuralizer from Men in Black.
yeah.
Let me set this real quick.
He goes, "It'll remove any trace of you or me." Like, May will not remember Osha or Chimera. And what's weird is she goes, "Handshake." She puts her hand out, and then he hands her the lightsaber. And I'm like, I don't understand that. And then she turns around.
His heart.
Huh?
So it's the key to his heart.
Yeah. And she turns, and they say, "Always one, born as two." And then you see the stranger do his little hand thing and wipes her memory. And I'm like, okay, convenient. And they run away, and the Jedi finally get to the Boonta tree, and they go, "Well, put your weapons down," or whatever. And she goes, "What did I do?" And they go, "What?" And I'm like, well, she could be lying, because anyone who's confronted about, like, you're under arrest, that I didn't do anything, it's not me, you got the wrong person. So I'm like
you're just automatically believing, like,
what? Why did
she doesn't know? Yeah,
this whole scene, I was just like, I get what they're wrapping it up. The sisters are now leaving, but I'm like, I just don't care. Their arcs aren't good. They're not interesting to watch. It's not interesting. They didn't do anything interesting. They were just kind of being escorted through this whole story, to be honest.
Yeah, I really want to go back to the decision making of the sisters. We're back together. We know that now. We both know the story. We know each other's side. Soul killed our mom. I love you. We're gonna wipe your entire. Especially the moment makes no sense, and it holds no emotional weight, because it's like, we're gonna hug and we're gonna wipe your memory of me.
Right.
But it's like, I will find you. Why don't you just take her with you? Take a ship.
Can't fit in the ship. Can't fit in the
have
ship.
her run away. Sit on my lap. I don't know. I think she would sit on Chimera's lap. That'd be fine, right? They're getting all cuddly.
Yeah.
It's just very, very weird. Why? There's always a way to escape. Why do you have to leave her and wipe her memory?
Because they're gonna use May to become a Jedi because she's so strong, and we'll get to why. And then Osha's gonna be the dark side, and then we're gonna have the sisters clash, and they'd be like, "I loved you at one point. Why are you fighting me?" And then be like, "We wiped your memory. They brainwashed you." It's gonna be like just the same thing over again.
Like, I literally know why, but I just question, how do you do this? How do you do this? You have these twin sisters, and they finally come back together, and we're a family again, wada. Osha is now miraculously ready to go learn to be a Sith and kill a bunch of Jedi.
My brain went to how cool would it have been to have Chimere with 2 Sith apprentices or acolytes, and now it's like kind of like a what is it, a Manson thing, right? So now you have like these 3 dark users running around, and the Jedi are like, well, how are we gonna, end them? And they're virgins, right? They're super strong, so they're actual threat. And then now we have good versus evil again, but they just kind of mix it up, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not interesting.
And it's like next season, it's like a Venestra show. Venestra on one side, and Chimere on the other. Like, that does not interest me.
Right? Because it would be Vernestra and May and Chimere and. Yeah, that actually does not sound like a good...
We're going to spend 6 episodes with Venestra saying, like, you sure you don't remember? You sure you don't remember? And it's like,
No, it's the Vernestra and Mog show. And Basil. They're going to promote Basil.
Basil's a Jedi.
his senses are so strong.
He surfed online and saw there's a job opening. There's like 16 of them from all these Jedi who died. Gosh. Like, I can apply.
So we see Vernestra talking with May. They bring her in handcuffs to the council room. She says, May, what's up? And she's like, I don't remember. Or like, what do you remember? She's like, I don't remember. Yeah. I remember a fire, destroyed my home. There was a man. He killed my mother. I need to tell someone. I can't find her. And Vernestra, tells the audience, oh, your last memory was from when you were 8 years old. And she says something about her sister. No, she goes, that man who you saw was my friend. He's a kind and brilliant, compassionate man. And
he did a bad thing.
He did a bad thing. She said he made a mistake. Oh, this is when she tells the senators, which is also a weird scene, kind of weird scene. She said there's a rogue Jedi named Soul. He killed his accomplices to maintain the cover story, and we condemn his actions. And Ravencor says the Jedi need to be reviewed. And she goes, it was only the flaw of one man. And they're like, well, where is he? And he's like, he died on Brendock. He went back to the scene of the original crime, and he offed himself. And they cut back to her with May, and she's like, he made a mistake. He justified every selfish step for the love he had for your sister. So she knew he loved Osha. And she goes, my sister? She goes, does the name Osha mean anything to you? And she goes, I need you to help me find someone. And she goes, who? And she goes, a pupil of mine before he turned evil. And I'm like, well, he has a name, I guess. And it's not Chimere. It's not the stranger. And at this point, they show Osha and Chimere hold hands on the water.
Wait, it's more than that. It's holding hands with a saber in between. It's like it's like you see the thumb clasp. Where did this come from? Where did this come from? I don't know. Like,
he's hot, man. He's hot, and that's why he just fall to the hotness, I guess.
Folded, but I didn't even see the fold. It wasn't even like she was like. I didn't even see her like. Oh man, this guy. It just happened. They went from I will never join you. It went from you killed my friends to I'm not gonna join you to I'm in love with you. I'm in love with you. I think we should what happened? I don't know how these things happen. It's crazy.
You never been in love, crazy. Man. You never been in love.
not like that. Maybe not. I mean, that's like if someone beat, like, say I was hanging out with 6 friends, and someone came and killed all of them and kidnapped me and took me to their basement, but then told me but they were pretty hot. Yeah. I'm like,
I mean, you killed my friends though. No, that's
Like,
a great one.
they didn't even like you.
It feels unearned. I feel like that would have been a season 2 thing where you see a whole season of them back and forth or working together, glances, and him saving her life or something, right? And then it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It does. At that point, I was like, I don't even care. And then we get the ending where Vanestra walks through some doors, and she's walking up to a little green friend.
Yeah.
And I lost it at this point, because then, correct me if I'm wrong, is Vanestra telling Yoda because okay, so it goes back to the scene. I need to talk to him. It's an urgent manner, and then they say like, this is so unusual. Why would you be reporting to Master Yoda? Like, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then now they're implicating that Yoda knows everything that went on, and now Yoda's a bad guy, and I don't like that, because Yoda is not a bad guy. He's a good guy. So what is going on?
They're going to make him a bad guy. They're going to make Yoda the worst Jedi you've ever seen. I promise you that. Yoda's like,
hide this we will. Hide this we will. Like,
lie.
On,
it's like, man. That's his advice. She's like, what should I do, Master Yoda?
Lie.
Lie. Like, oh, yeah.
That was like, to me, I'm like, this is where I'm really upset. Because again, people were upset that Kiadi-Mundi they were like, oh, does Kiadi-Mundi know? Now you're actually telling me that Yoda knows? Unless you tell me that Vernestra's lying to Yoda, there would be no reason for her to go to talk to him.
Yeah, there's no reason to talk to him, especially when the whole show has been about specifically not talking to him, so that we can not tell him
Yoda is
all
on the
these
High
lies.
Council. He shouldn't know these things if she's trying to hide it.
A counselor knows these things. You know what I mean? A senator knows these things. A senator does Yoda if the senator knows, does Yoda not know? Like he doesn't know at all. And then if he doesn't, I mean, how did you last 100 years more? I don't know.
I couldn't believe it, dude. I couldn't believe that was like the
and that to me again, and this is why I think that's again why the Plagueis thing works even less for me, is because I will throw the saber crystal bleeding in there as well. Plagueis, the crystal bleeding, Yoda, it just feels like they threw in a bunch of things to throw them in there. Yeah. It's just like we can use Plagueis, we can use Yoda, but they don't want us to really use them. It's like, can we just throw them in there in the last episode?
They're like, yeah, sure.
Like, well, then let's just throw them in there.
They're like, wait, that's how you use Yoda?
Yeah, it's like, if you're gonna use Yoda, I feel like you use Yoda.
You should have used him in the council scene. Or like
done.
Him show up and be like, what are you guys talking about? You know, the Jedi are good, and like be this beacon of good and hope, because yes, the Clone Wars actually does try to put Yoda in a bad light, like the hubris of the Jedi was their downfall. Sure. But if he knew it 200 years ago, or 100 years prior, to me it's upsetting, because then now Yoda's also a portion of hiding things.
Like, I'm fine using Yoda, but you're right. Even in the prequels, yes, there was hubris and there was sort of this blind eye part of it, but Yoda wasn't trying to be, like, he wasn't a bad Yoda. He was giving wisdom. He was, trying to talk to, there was scenes where he tried to talk to Anakin, like, oh, visions aren't, your mind is clouded, things like that. It's not like he was, like, trying to cover up, like, it's not like he knew Anakin was turning to the Sith, per se, and he was like, it's all right. Like, you know what I mean? Let's just lie about this and that. I don't know. It's again, this is my thing. Like, if we creep closer and closer to the events of episode 1, whatever the case, if we start to include these characters that we know and they just like make them make these terrible decisions that we saw everybody else in the show make, like, are we gonna see Yoda on one episode saying like, the Sith actually weren't that bad when you think about it? Like, if you really read the books, like, they weren't that bad.
This show is too dangerous to be continued. Because that's what I'm afraid of too. There was, in previous podcasts, we talk about how much I love Revan. And now I'm too afraid for Revan to have his own thing under this Disney umbrella, because to me, looking back at like just the quality of shows, it's not as good as it could be, right? Like, we love Andor, but I'm afraid if you give us a character that I care about and you're going to put them in a precarious story written situation, I don't want it. Now you're telling me you might do that with Yoda and you might do that with Plagueis. I'm like, please don't. Please, let's just not do that with this team. Like, I don't want to see that. Please don't.
Yeah, with Revan specifically, I mean, we both love that game a ton, right? But I do think, like, there was a time where I really wanted a Knights of the Old Republic adaptation, but then I really changed my mind pretty quick when I thought about the issue with a character like Revan, is that everybody had their own experience with him,
right,
or her. You can make it a male or a female.
Yeah.
You can have them, built differently, and so everybody having their own, their own thoughts of what that character is makes it impossible to me. Like it's impossible. Revan to you and Revan to me is probably vastly different anyways.
Yeah,
you know
completely
what I mean?
different. Yeah.
But with that being said, I think you're right. Like Yoda would have made sense for Yoda to be in this story, but I'm glad that he really wasn't because I just don't like. And I'm not that sentimental with like characters per se, but I am if you're gonna, if you're gonna make Yoda complicit with this. I don't know. With it, like, is she just looping him in on the lie, and then we find out the whole time he had these lies under his,
I just don't like the idea of maybe being complicit in it. Like, we should have just not even.
I agree.
Or you'd have been like, you see Yoda walking in the background, be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Or like even I don't know, because Yoda
like
is just... Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say they use Yoda like they used Yaddle in episode 1. It's like, oh, who's that?
I would have been happy to see Yaddle instead, right? I'm like, oh, Yaddle, like, yeah,
that would have been cool.
That would have been cool.
That'd have been cool.
And then that would have been a tie to Tales of the Jedi, where she's like intuitive about the Sith thing and going after Palpatine and Dooku from Tales of the Jedi. Like, it would fit there, but they decided.
And we don't have all, like, we have the first Yaddle lore we really got with like physical media and shows and movies was that Tales of the Jedi episode arc.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was in the background of the prequels, and like the character is malleable. Like, you could do anything with that character. So you
literally,
yeah.
I mean, E.T. was there. You know what I mean? Like, that was. We could have done anything. That's a good idea, though. They should have used Yaddle. That would have been cool, right?
Yeah, I would have been fine with that. I'd be like, oh snap, Yaddle's here. Like, that would have been fine. But anyway, how would you rate the episode? I could start first if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Going through it again, I said I liked it because that's emotionally, by the end, I think I'm just high on the fights, and I'm glad I got a good fight scene out of it. And I like the kyber crystal bleeding part. I thought it was cool to see on screen. I don't know if we've ever seen much of the changing of the color of the kyber crystals. And I mean, it carries a lot. But that's just my initial. It still doesn't make the show good. It doesn't make it a great season. But I feel like where it ended is par for the course. So that being said, 4.5 out of 10. Like, all right. But this is like, it's better than the last few episodes. It doesn't really make any sense still, but that's what the show is. And I'm giving it 0.5 because I really like the 4.5 because I really like the fight scenes. Like, it's probably some. I don't watch fight scenes often, but I'm gonna remember the fight scenes. Episode 5 fight scenes, Chimera versus the Jedis, and then Chimera versus Soul. Again, if it had more, if it brought more to it story wise, then I would rate this higher. But Plagueis was there, and he's Mun, so I'm glad he's not anybody. He's not different. So yeah, 4.5.
I want to preface this by saying I do love Star Wars. There's so much I love,
of course,
and I am forgiving, and I am forgiving, and it's not like I hate everything. This is an outlier for me. This is an outlier. It is an outlier for me. Go if you watch my videos or whatever. I am pretty forgiving on a lot of things, and even like I will defend a lot of things that I'm giving this a 2 because I think the finale gets graded on a higher scale. It's your last chance.
Oh, yeah.
You can make up for shortcomings by justifying them with things that happen in your finale. It was a 48-minute episode, and I did not like the way a single storyline played out whatsoever. This left the characters in the worst possible spot for me. Things that feelings I haven't felt since like in a while. So while the fight was cool, I was left not thinking about the fight whatsoever until we did this talk because of how I felt about everything else. So I am giving it the lowest score of the season, I think, maybe tied with it with a 2 because it left me with a was just such a bad feeling. Like, I went on this journey with them. I stuck it out, not because I thought it was going to get better or anything.
Right.
But I do think that the finale is where you have your chance to justify things, right? This is the moment. This is your final act.
Yeah.
We don't know if we're getting a season 2. There have been moments where you have a bad first season and a great second season. I'm not going to rule that out completely. If they do make a second season, I'll watch it. But this was a 2. I did not enjoy my time watching it, and I don't hope to watch it again. So, yep.
No, I think that's fair. And you have a lot of content. We're both on a lot of content where we talk about how much we love Star Wars, and we wouldn't talk about it if we didn't care, right? But this is par for the course. Power of 1, the power of 2, the power of many. Go ahead.
The power of many. If you love this, that's awesome, and I will never tell you not to love it. I think that's important that, like, you know, I'm not going to justify me not liking it by trying to make someone else not like it. But yes, I hope you. I think if you made it to the end of this
good on
video,
you
made good on you. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate this journey we went on, the good and the bad. Right? We stick through it, and it's been an honor to be your co-host.
Oh man, it's
for this series. Next up is going to be Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew is the next Star Wars show. Yeah, I think it's in December or something like that.
I think so. Something like that.
Like November, December.
Back half of the year. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to... I haven't talked to Eli about it, but I'm going to try to pull his arm to do a whole season wrap-up of this, because we spent a lot of time just talking about Episode 8. Maybe talk about a little bit like where it ranks. Maybe it's something a little bit more lighthearted or short. Just to kind of like, if you didn't watch any of these episodes, we can just go, hey, this is the good, the bad of Acolyte, and then just wrap it up as a full, maybe give it a little bit of time to breathe, see if there's some things, maybe talk about if a season 2 gets greenlit, who knows, or if they should do a season 2, because we're pretty far in time right now on the recording of this, and I don't want to push it too much longer. But any final thoughts, Eli, before we wrap up?
If you do twist my arm enough to do that video, I want it to be known I will be a hypocrite, because I have been telling people that this will be my last time speaking about the Acolyte. So they're like, you're just like them. Change it.
It would be me. It would be me. I'm gonna be shirtless and be like, join me.
I don't think this. If I do that, I don't think we're bringing in viewers. But like, it was that might happen.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll think about it. There's no promises. We'll think about it. As long as we'll think about it. But if you guys enjoyed it, thank you again so much for tuning into this. It's super fun to talk with Eli about Star Wars, good or bad. Make sure you check out his channel, the Fan Awakens. It'll be in the description again. We did a Star Wars fantasy draft of the movies and the shows, and we want you to pick which team that you think won. If you can only pick one list to watch forever, is it Rancor or is it Team Fan Awakens? It's a fun video. We shot, so go ahead and check that out. Maybe we'll do more drafts if you guys like that.
I think with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and post our lists on Instagram at this point.
Yeah.
And so if you head over to the Fan Awakens Instagram, I'm sure you'll share it too.
Yep.
You can vote there, and then if you want to see how we got there, you can go check out the video at this point. But there was something that I extended to the video, and we didn't really get votes, so that's why I'm putting on Instagram.
Yeah.
If you vote on the Instagram post, I'll still give a shirt away to one of the voters. Just comment which team, and that's pretty much it. Just leave a comment.
Yeah.
Which team you're going with, and you'll be entered to win a Rancor shirt of your choice.
Hashtag Rancor on that too, on those comments, as if you got through this video. And I still want to give a shirt here. So if you guys want a shirt, make sure you comment on these videos. I'll put all 3 together because there's not that many people who are entering. So make sure you make a comment. It helps out the channel a lot. Like it and subscribe, because there's going to be a lot more content coming from the Rancor channel. Follow Eli at the Fan Awakens on Twitch. Check out his stuff. Stay more for my stuff. And thanks for being here for the Acolyte reviews. Maybe you didn't enjoy the show. Maybe you did. Let us know in the comments. And if you think there'll be a season 2, maybe we'll do it. If you want another video wrapping up the entire season, please let us know. With that being said, I hope you all have a galactic rest of your day. Punch it, Plagueis! Boom! We're out of here. Bye, guys.